Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. And today, first off, I want to give a big shout out to Rowley for providing us with that new intro music. If you want to show him some support and some love for creating that tune for us, please go check out his website and his Apple Music, which is linked in the description down below. Also, he has provided us with new stream music to add on to our pretty diverse set of stream music. I say that jokingly because I've been listening to the same about 12 tracks for, well, the past year, and it's very refreshing that he's provided us with some more stream music. If you like that kind of two steps for hell hybrid style of music along with a bit more of a cyberpunk type of music too, he has all that on his Apple Music, so please go check that out in the description down below. Anyway, today also almost forgot, logo guy. So if you guys noticed, we did get an actual logo for the channel there in the intro. Now, this person did not want to be identified, at least in the email where we corresponded, but if you are in the comments down below, logo guy, please feel free to speak up, and I will highlight your comment if you choose to change your mind on being identified and given a shout out. But you're getting one anyway here, buddy, because that's a really sweet looking logo. So big thanks to those two guys there for helping us spruce up the channel a little bit. Alright, anyway, today, as you can tell by the title of today's video, we are tackling the great secondary IFHE argument. So, if you don't know, there's a commander skill, used to be for everybody, but it's now just for battleships. I think it still is for just about everybody. I think destroyers get it too. Whatever. Anyway, it's a IFHE, inertia fuse for HE shells. Basically, what it does is it increases the pinning capacity of your HE shells, but it reduces your chance of fire by half. Now, back in the day, it wasn't by half; it was by a certain percentage based upon caliber. But now it's just flat out by half all around. So, the argument is that if you are in a secondary battleship, you should be taking IFHE because it boosts the pinning capacity of your secondary shells. Now, today we're mainly focusing on the Germans. The American secondary battleships, they have a very different way of dealing damage with their secondaries. They mostly go for fires because the American secondary battleships normally have, well, they used to have great accuracy and amazing reload time, but now they just have amazing reload time and basically the same accuracy as the Germans, but they still reload much faster than the Germans, and I do still believe that they should still just go for full fire build and they'll be fine. The Germans is a bit of a different story. Now, the Pommern here is the subject of much of this debate, along with the FDG, Bismarck, and Tirpitz, because unlike the higher tier German battleships, well, the highest tier German battleship, the Grosse Kurfürst, whose all of her secondaries can pin 32mm of armor, there's not much of an argument there for IFHE because you can pin the major threshold at your tier, which is 32mm on all your secondaries. So, in my opinion, the GK, there's not much of an argument there. However, the Pommern, a good chunk of first secondaries, these 105s, cannot pin 32mm of armor. They can only pin 26. Now, the 150s can pin 38, so no problem there, and we got 12 of these. But for 16 of your secondary guns, you can't pin 32. And for the longest time, I've just been a proponent of, well, it's still 26mm of armor. When you're top tier at tier 9, you shouldn't have much problem dealing damage with your secondaries. Plus, they get a 5% chance of starting a fire and 2.3 seconds on their reload time with a full secondary build. So I didn't pay much mind, and I don't go for IFHE on the Pommern, or the FDG for that matter. And we'll get into why here in a moment. But for the purpose of this video, we're going to be scientific about that. I'm going to put that line of thinking away for now, and we are going to run a series of tests in a training room with the Pommern and test out non-IFHE secondaries versus IFHE secondaries and their time to sink a ship, and then we will reconvene here for my thoughts on it. So what we're going to do right now is look at the stats of the ship without IFHE, and then we'll look at the stats with the ship with IFHE, and well, we'll look at the stats of the ship with IFHE, go into the training room, show you what the non-IFHE secondaries do. Then we'll look at the stats of the ship with IFHE when I put the IFHE build on it, and then go into a training room and see what it's like there, and compare, and then draw a conclusion. So let's go ahead and look at the stats of the artillery without IFHE. So your 15-inch guns, your 12 15-inch guns, without IFHE, they have a 34% chance of starting a fire. and they pin 95 millimeters of armor, which is more than you'll ever need. The secondary guns, the 105s, like I just said, they pin 26 millimeters of armor, and they have a 5% chance of starting a fire. The 150s pin 38 millimeters of armor. They have an 8% chance of starting a fire. Alright, we're going to go ahead, hop in a training room, look at the results there, and reconvene here and look at the ship with IFHE on it. Alright, for the non-IFHE Palmer, it took Palmer. Oh, what I did, by the way, I should probably explain this. I picked out 3 of the ships that I had selected originally, because I didn't want to sit in the training room for like a friggin' hour chewing through all these ships. So I picked out the Venezia, the Hindenburg, and the Petropavlovsk to test the secondaries on. So the Venezia, it took the Palmer without IFHE 2 minutes and 20 seconds to burn down the Venezia, the Tier 10 Italian cruiser. After the Venezia, I moved on to the Hindenburg, which it took the Palmer without IFHE 3 minutes flat to chew through the Hindenburg. And then after the Hindenburg, I went to the Petropavlovsk, and there it chewed through the Petropavlovsk in 3 minutes and 59 seconds. Which the Petro is a really well-armored cruiser. It sits really low in the waterline. I'm sure most of us have had to deal with her before. Not a fun boat to deal with. Alright, looking at Lucians over here, we now have IFHE equipped. They basically just gave up MLG turrets for IFHE just for the purpose of this test. I normally wouldn't give this up, but you don't really have a lot of options because it's so expensive to get the secondary skills now. So, yeah, thanks for rework. Alright, so with IFHE now, the main battery guns now have a 17% chance of starting a fire, but they can pin 118 millimeters now. Your 105s can now pin 32 millimeters of armor, but now they only have a 2.5% chance of starting a fire. And your 150s can pin 47 millimeters of armor. That's a bit overkill. And they now only have a 4% chance of starting a fire. Alright, so we'll go ahead, roll the training room footage of the IFHE Palmer, and I will meet you guys there. With IFHE, I did the same thing, approached the ships from roughly the same distance, about 7.5 kilometers away. It took the Palmer with IFHE 2 minutes and 52 seconds to chew through the Venezia. After I got done with the Venezia, of course, I moved on to the Hindenburg, which with IFHE, it took the Palmer 2 minutes 29 seconds to chew through the Hindenburg. Absolutely melted that one. So after the Palmer just consumed the Hindenburg, naturally we moved on to the Petropavlovsk. So it took the Palmer with IFHE 4 minutes and 38 seconds to chew through the Petropavlovsk. So in each of the ship's cases, except for the Hindenburg, it took the secondaries longer to chew through the ships. Venezia was about 30 seconds longer, 32 seconds longer to be exact, and the Petropavlovsk, it was almost 40 seconds longer to chew through those ships with IFHE. Now, Hindenburg, its side armor is 30 millimeters, so naturally, since all the secondaries can pin 30 millimeters now, it was just utterly annihilated. However, the Venezia, which isn't the case there, the Venezia has a 40 millimeter belt and only a strip of 30 millimeters at its upper belt, so the inability to pin much extra there just caused it to set less fires and therefore take longer to chew through the Venezia. Now, obviously, it could pin a little bit more of the Venezia, but just losing, half of your fire potential, it didn't make up for it. And of course, with the Petropavlovsk, we all know Petropavlovsk is strong boat made out of stalinium, as all Soviet ships are. So she has, of course, a 50 millimeter upper belt and then a 180 millimeter belt. So you're not gaining any more penetration there. The front of the ship, the bow, is 25 millimeters, and the stern is 25 millimeters too, of which the secondaries could already pin. And again, you're just giving yourself in fire chance there, so it took much longer to chew through the Petropavlovsk. Now, of course, these are only 3 cruisers, but these are some of the most popular cruisers at Tier 10. Hindenburg's very popular right now because of the Commander rework. Petropavlovsk has been popular since it came out. Venezia, well, Sapko Burr, so she's still pretty popular too. So, should you take IFHE on German battleships like Pommern, FTG, Bismarck, Tirpitz, ships that can't pin 32 millimeters of armor, that can see higher tier ships? I'd say on the lower tier ships it's really not necessary, especially when you get to the Gneisenau, because all those secondaries can pin the armor of like 98% of the ships that you're going to see playing at tier 7. But for those ships that are always talked about with IFHE secondaries, should you take IFHE? Well, I would still say no, because if you don't run across a ship that you can pin most of its armor with your IFHE secondaries, like the Hindenburg, you're pretty boned, like severely boned, especially in the case of Pommern, because Pommern has 15-inch guns. I guess this would, of course, apply to Bismarck and Tirpitz too. They have 15-inch guns. They don't have much overmatching abilities at higher tier, especially against battleships, unless you run to like a Slava. So, yes, your secondaries are doing more damage to ships coated in 30 and 32 millimeters of armor. However, you're now gimped in those situations where you need to load HE into your main battery guns, like when battleships are angled to you. This is especially true with 15-inch guns, because on the Pommern with IFHE, you now only have a 17% chance of starting a fire on your main battery guns. And if that battleship is out of secondary range, then you're really screwed, because, yeah, you might be able to pin his bow with your secondaries, but if they're smart and just further away than 12 kilometers from you, you're really boned in that situation. So, for those ships, I would say don't take IFHE. Now, for like FDG, who has decent-sized guns for her tier, I would say you could probably take it there. It's up to you. And still, the choice is ultimately up to you. Do you want to have secondaries that can pin 32 millimeters of armor all the time, but basically have very little chance of starting a fire? Or do you want to be able to set plenty of fires, despite, the armor of the ship, be able to have that good, consistent fire damage? I would say not taking IFHE is still very advantageous right now, especially right now. And something that was brought up the last time we talked about this with the Pommern is that, supercruisers. I want to be able to pin supercruisers. Okay, I can see where you're going there. However, supercruisers now, they just kill over to fires, because they can't take any survivability skills anymore. They can't take fire prevention anymore. They can't take basics of survivability anymore. That's not available to them. So fires absolutely murder supercruisers. I'm talking about the Yoshino, Stalingrad, Siegfried, Alaska, all that jazz. They still have battleship burn time now, with no way to get that down outside of flags. So if you take a full fire build, you will absolutely annihilate those supercruisers. Now again, it's still up to you, and I'm not going to berate somebody for taking IFHE on their German battleship. I'm just saying, in my personal opinion, I would still not take IFHE. And I can understand why you would want to take, because yes, we did absolutely murder that Hindenburg when we took IFHE on the Pommern. It's up to you. I just did this test to show you guys what it's like with and without IFHE. And from my personal experience, I've done just fine without IFHE. The thing is, too, once you get to Kurfürst in your German battleship grind, it's really not worth it at all, because all those secondaries can pin 32 millimeters of armor. So you're good to go there. So you'd have to respec that commander to take IFHE off of him, which by the time you get there, you probably have like a 17 or 18 point commander. And that's an expensive reset. To reset Lucian's for this test, because I don't have a German battleship captain with IFHE on him, it was 525 dubs. So yeah, if you don't have a channel funding your experiments, it's going to be pretty expensive. So I'd say just leave it off of him, and when you get to the GK, enjoy your 32 millimeters of pin. And it's not like the German secondaries don't have good pin. They have good pin. When you are at your tier, the German secondaries can pin everything at that tier just fine. It's when you get up tier that you run into those problems, like with the Palmer. 26 millimeters of pin at tier 9 is fine, but when you get up to the tier 10, like the Palmer does a lot, of course, the cruisers start to have a little bit thicker of armor there, you run into that issue. But again, it's such a great fire setter that I just wouldn't take IFHE, in my opinion. Again, it's up to you guys. I've told you guys my recommendations. You can throw it out the window if you want. That's fine. It's your ship. Build it how you want to build it. Play it how you want to play it. Hope you guys are having a wonderful... What day is this coming out? Wednesday. That's when this is coming out. Hope you're having a wonderful Wednesday. Last day of March. And I hope you guys enjoyed. And if you did, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. We're now to 25,000 subs. We just passed 23,400 a few days. So 23,500 a few days ago, and I cannot thank you guys enough for that. Again, guys, hope you're having a wonderful Wednesday. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.